On September 6, 1997, the world came to a halt following the tragic passing of Princess Diana. Millions across the globe mourned a woman who touched countless hearts. Yet, amid the public grief, there were lesser-known moments and hidden stories that surfaced during her emotional funeral procession. From heartfelt tributes to unexpected breaches of protocol, this video will reveal 15 captivating details from Princess Diana's funeral procession that will leave you speechless. Unprecedented public turnout. The massive public turnout for Princess Diana's funeral procession was unparalleled. Approximately 1 million people lined the streets of London, creating a sea of mourners that stretched for miles. This gathering was not merely an event, it was a phenomenon that spoke volumes about Diana's impact on public consciousness. People from all backgrounds, young and old, rich and poor, stood united in their grief. Many traveled from across the UK and even from other countries, camping overnight to secure a place along the route. The crowd was so dense in certain areas that movement was nearly impossible, yet there was a shared sense of purpose and mutual respect. This enormous turnout was more than evidence of Diana's popularity. It sent a clear message to the royal family and the world about the deep connection people felt with the people's princess. Silent tribute. As the funeral procession moved through London, the profound silence that enveloped the crowd was perhaps the most striking aspect. Despite the millions present, an eerie hush descended on the city, broken only by the rhythmic sound of horses' hooves and the tolling of church bells. This silence was not enforced or orchestrated, it was a spontaneous collective response that revealed the depth of emotion felt by the public. In a city known for its constant activity, the silence was almost surreal, described by many observers as the day's most powerful aspect, more moving than any words could express. Walking behind the coffin. One of the most heart-wrenching images from the funeral procession was that of young Princes William and Harry, aged 15 and 12, walking behind their mother's coffin, accompanied by their father Prince Charles, now King Charles III, grandfather Prince Philip, and Uncle Charles Spencer. 9th Earl Spencer. The young prince's participation in this public display of mourning was both controversial and deeply moving. The decision to have the boys walk in the procession was debated, with some believing it was too much to ask of children who had just lost their mother. However, others saw it as a necessary part of royal duty and an opportunity for the princes to honor their mother publicly. The image of these young boys, heads bowed, walking behind the coffin became one of the day's most iconic and emotionally charged moments. It humanized the royal family in a way rarely seen before, showing the world that behind the titles and protocol, there was real, raw grief. Floral tributes. The floral tributes that lined the procession route created a beautiful and deeply moving visual spectacle. Tens of thousands of flowers, ranging from elaborate bouquets to simple hand-picked blooms, were left by mourners in the days leading up to the funeral. These created a vibrant path of remembrance that stretched for miles. The sea of flowers was not confined to the procession route alone. Outside Kensington Palace, Diana's London residence, the floral tributes grew to such an extent that they were said to be 5 feet deep in places. The perfume from these millions of flowers filled the air, creating a sensory experience that many attendees would never forget. These floral tributes were more than a tradition, they became a form of public expression, with many flowers accompanied by personal notes, teddy bears, or photographs, each telling a story of how Diana had touched someone's life. The sheer volume of these tributes became a physical manifestation of the public's love for Diana and their grief at her loss. The coffin. The coffin carrying Diana's body became a powerful symbol. Draped in the royal standard, it reminded the world of Diana's royal status, despite her divorce from Prince Charles. The flag's presence sparked some controversy, as it's traditionally reserved for current members of the royal family, but it was seen as a fitting tribute to Diana's enduring importance to the monarchy. Atop the coffin lay a wreath of white flowers, including lilies, Diana's favorite. Perhaps the most poignant addition was a small envelope nestled among the blooms, bearing the single word mummy. This card, from Princes William and Harry, was a heart-wrenching reminder that, amid the public spectacle, this was fundamentally about the loss of a beloved mother. The coffin was carried on a gun carriage. A tradition for royal funerals dating back to Queen Victoria's era, As it made its way through London, the coffin became the focus of the nation's gaze, with every detail scrutinized and imbued with meaning by the millions watching. Earl Spencer's speech. Earl Spencer's eulogy for his sister Diana was a defining moment of the funeral, memorable for its raw emotion and controversial content. Speaking at Westminster Abbey, Charles Spencer delivered a speech that was both a loving tribute to his sister and a scathing indictment of the media and, by implication, the royal family. Spencer's words resonated deeply with the public as he spoke of Diana's compassion, her love for her sons, and her struggles with the pressures of royal life. He famously described her as the most hunted person of the modern age, a pointed reference to the relentless media pursuit that many believed contributed to her death. Perhaps most controversially, Spencer pledged to protect William and Harry, vowing that their blood family would guide them so that their souls would not be simply immersed by duty and tradition. This was widely interpreted as a criticism of the royal family and their approach to raising the young princes. A Westminster Abbey service. The funeral service at Westminster Abbey was a grand yet deeply personal affair that brought together an eclectic mix of 2,000 guests. This historic venue, the site of coronations and royal weddings for nearly a millennium, became the focal point for a global outpouring of grief. The guest list was a testament to Diana's wide-ranging impact and diverse connections. It included representatives from the 100-plus charities she supported, international dignitaries like Hillary Clinton and Henry Kissinger, and celebrities such as Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, and Steven Spielberg. This mix of royalty, political figures, and stars from the entertainment world reflected Diana's unique position as both a royal and a global celebrity. The service itself was a carefully choreographed blend of tradition and personal touches. Traditional hymns were interspersed with more modern elements like Elton John's performance, and readings were given by Diana's sisters and Tony Blair, who read a passage from Corinthians, his voice thick with emotion. Elton John's performance. One of the most memorable moments of Diana's funeral was Elton John's performance of Candle in the Wind, 1997, a reworked version of his 1974 hit. This performance was not just a musical interlude, it became a defining moment of the service and a tribute that resonated around the world. The decision to include a pop star's performance in a royal funeral was unprecedented and reflected Diana's impact on modernizing the monarchy. Elton John, a close friend of Diana's, had originally been scheduled to sing your song, but it was decided that Candle in the Wind would be more appropriate with modified lyrics. Bernie Taupin rewrote the lyrics, changing the opening line from Goodbye Norma Jean to Goodbye England's Rose. The new version paid tribute to Diana's compassion, grace, and the tragic nature of her death. John's emotional delivery in Westminster Abbey left many in tears, encapsulating the nation's grief in a way that formal eulogies could not. The performance was broadcast to millions worldwide, and the re-released single became the fastest-selling in UK chart history. It went on to become the best-selling single of all time globally. The song's success reflected how John's tribute captured the public mood and provided a musical memorial to Diana that endured long after the funeral. Global broadcast. The global broadcast of Diana's funeral was an unprecedented media event watched by an estimated 2.5 billion people worldwide. This figure, representing about 40% of the world's population at the time, made it one of the most watched events in television history. The broadcast was a massive technical and logistical undertaking, with multiple camera angles capturing every moment of the procession and service, while commentators provided context and background information. In the UK, BBC One and ITV's coverage began at 7 a.m. and continued uninterrupted until 4 p.m., with the BBC alone using 43 cameras to cover the event. The global nature of the broadcast highlighted Diana's international appeal and the worldwide impact of her death. It was aired in numerous languages across different continents, with many countries interrupting regular programming to show the funeral live. In the United States, all major networks carried the funeral, starting in the early hours of the morning due to the time difference. White roses and lilies. The choice of white roses and lilies, as the primary flowers for Diana's funeral, was deeply symbolic and personal. These were known to be Diana's favorite flowers, and their prominence in the funeral arrangements added a touching personal element to the formal proceedings. White roses have long been associated with purity, innocence, and new beginnings in many cultures. In the language of flowers, they can also represent honor and reverence, fitting tributes to Diana's memory. Lilies, particularly white lilies, are traditionally associated with restored innocence for the departed. They are also linked with majesty and purity, again appropriate for a princess known for her humanitarian work. These flowers were everywhere during the funeral proceedings. They adorned the gun carriage bearing Diana's coffin, formed part of the wreath atop the coffin, and were prominent in the floral tributes from the public. The use of these flowers added a layer of meaning to the visual elements of the funeral, reinforcing the themes of purity, honor, and remembrance. Prince William and Prince Harry's decision to walk behind their mother's coffin was one of the most difficult choices they had ever made. In the days following Diana's death, there was much debate about whether the young princes should be expected to take part in such a public display of grief. The decision was ultimately left to them, and after much deliberation, they chose to walk in the procession. Years later, both princes have spoken about how challenging this experience was. In an interview marking the 20th anniversary of Diana's death, Prince Harry revealed that no child should be asked to do what they did, describing it as something no one could ever prepare for. Prince William echoed similar sentiments, saying it was one of the hardest things he had ever done. However, both princes have also expressed understanding that it was an important part of honoring their mother and acknowledging the public's grief. The absence of the Queen's flag. One of the most controversial aspects of the funeral was the apparent absence of the royal standard flag at half-mast at Buckingham Palace. The royal standard, representing the sovereign and the United Kingdom, traditionally never flies at half-mast, even in mourning. Because the sovereign never dies, the flag symbolizes the continuity of the monarchy. However, in the days following Diana's death, the public expected to see a flag at half-mast as a sign of mourning. The absence of this gesture sparked widespread criticism, as many saw it as a sign of the royal family's distance from public sentiment. The media fueled this controversy, with several newspapers running headlines questioning the Queen's response to Diana's death. Eventually, in a significant departure from protocol, the Queen agreed to fly the Union Jack at half-mast over Buckingham Palace on the day of the funeral. This gesture was widely seen as a concession to public feeling and a recognition of the unique circumstances surrounding Diana's death. Tony Blair's role. Tony Blair, who had been Prime Minister for only a few months at the time of Diana's death, played a crucial role in shaping the public response to her passing. Blair famously referred to Diana as the People's Princess. In a statement delivered the day after her death, coining a phrase that captured the public mood and has since become synonymous with Diana's legacy. Blair's handling of the situation was widely praised for striking the right balance between respect for the monarchy and empathy with public sentiment. He worked closely with the royal family and senior officials to ensure that the funeral reflected both Diana's royal status and her unique relationship with the public. Blair's involvement included discussions about the funeral arrangements, where he advocated for including elements that would resonate with the public, such as Elton John's performance. Blair's role in the days leading up to the funeral was crucial in bridging the gap between the royal family and the grieving public, helping to navigate a delicate situation during a time of national crisis. The guests' attire. The attire of the guests at Diana's funeral was a study in contrasts, reflecting the event's unique blend of royal protocol and modern celebrity culture. Traditional mourning attire was expected, with male guests in dark suits and ties and female guests in black dresses or suits. However, there were notable exceptions that added a touch of individuality to the proceedings. For instance, many of the celebrities present, such as Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, opted for more contemporary and stylish interpretations of mourning wear, blending respect for tradition with a nod to Diana's influence on fashion. Some guests, particularly representatives from the charities Diana supported, wore colorful accessories or elements that symbolized their cause, adding a splash of color to the otherwise somber proceedings. The contrast in attire reflected Diana's legacy as both a member of the royal family and a modern icon, known for her fashion sense and her ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Final resting place. Princess Diana's final resting place is on an island in the middle of a lake at her family's Althorpe estate in Northamptonshire. This decision to bury Diana in such a private and secluded location was made to ensure her peace and privacy, away from the public eye. The island is located in the middle of the round oval, a serene lake surrounded by lush greenery. This site was chosen over other potential burial sites, including Westminster Abbey and the family's crypt, due to concerns over public safety and the desire to protect the grave from vandalism. The secluded island allows Diana's family to visit her grave in privacy, while a memorial has been established nearby for the public to pay their respects. The site has since become a place of pilgrimage for Diana's admirers, who visit Althorpe each year during the summer when the estate is open to the public. The choice of such a tranquil and beautiful final resting place reflects Diana's wish for peace and the family's desire to honor her memory in a way that respects her unique life and legacy. These 15 facts unveil the profound and complex layers behind the iconic images of Princess Diana's funeral procession. Each detail contributes to the story of how Diana, even in death, left an indelible mark on the world. Whether you were among the millions who watched or are just learning about it today, her legacy continues to resonate, reminding us of the impact one life can have.